Hi there, welcome back to the spooky small space garden, except that today we're not in the garden. Today I am going to be processing my tomato harvest, and these have been in my freezer. So if you've ever grown tomatoes, you know that your tomatoes will not ripen all at the same time. So I might get 3 ripe tomatoes at a time, a handful, however many, but you get the point. So what I do is as they ripen, I put them in a freezer bag, toss them in the freezer. So every time I get a ripe tomato, I just toss them in until I've got a full bag, and then I'll process them and turn it into sauce. So one of the great things about freezing your tomatoes is that when they thaw, they are super easy to peel. And I know that not everybody peels their tomatoes when they make sauce, but I'm going to, and I did this last year and it worked great. Some people will, another way to skin their tomatoes easily is to blanch them. So kind of the same concept. You blanch them, put them in an ice bath, and then the skins come off. They just slide right off. But this works great. So these have been thawing out in the fridge all of yesterday, a little bit on the counter today. So hopefully they are completely thawed out, and we're going to get started getting them peeled. So I've got a bowl here. So you just make your first little, yeah, see how easily these peels come off? I mean, they just literally slide right off. So awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, throw my tomatoes in here. So one thing I plan on doing is, so last year, I put the peels in the compost. So question, peel goes in here, dummy. If you've ever bought a can of tomato paste, and let's say your recipe calls for 1 or 2 tablespoons. So what do you do with the rest of that paste that was in that can? Well, for me, I had been putting it into ice cube trays and then freezing it. That way, if I need, throw that one, if I need a tablespoon or 2, I just pop it out of the freezer. Once I get them frozen in the ice cube trays, I just put them in a bag in the freezer and use it as I need it. However, what I'm going to do with these skins is I'm going to save them. And what I'll be doing is I'm going to dehydrate them, and you can do that either in the oven or if you have a dehydrator, both works well. So I'm going to dehydrate them, and then I'm going to grind it down into powder. So a couple ways you can use tomato powder. One, you can use it to thicken sauces, stews, whatever you need. Chili, so many uses for it. For me personally, I'm going to use it as tomato paste. So if you want to use tomato powder to make tomato paste, it's a 1-to-1 with water. So if you need a tablespoon of paste, throw in a tablespoon of water, mix it up, and boom, you've got a tablespoon of tomato paste. So super easy. It stores well. And my fingers are frozen right now. It stores well. So yeah, I'll be using tomato paste, and I plan on doing this every year because I just, I know what went into growing these tomatoes. I don't know what's in that can of tomato paste. And this way I do. And I'm really excited to try it because I haven't tried it yet, but once again, something new to try, and I'm excited. So I'm going to finish peeling these tomatoes, and I'll get you back here for the next step. So I've got my tomatoes peeled and in this bowl, and then I've got my skins in this bowl, and I've bunched them up into a ball and just squeezing out any excess juice because I want these as dry as possible before I put them in the dehydrator. So I'm going to loosen them up a bit. Try not to throw them everywhere. All right, so these will go in the dehydrator in a day or two whenever I get time. And as you can see, I have a lot of tomato water juice left over. And I say water because these were frozen. So as they thaw, obviously any icicles or whatever will turn into water. So I am going to use this. And also you can see, well, I don't know if you can see, there's a whole lot of juice in here. You can't really see, but I can tilt the camera, but my hands are messy. So that step is done. I'm going to hold on to this water for now because I do have quite a bit in here. So my next step for me personally, and I know that there are a lot of people who process their tomatoes and make sauce, including the seeds, but I like to squeeze out as many of the seeds as I can. And I say squeeze, and I mean literally squeeze. And this works for me. There are many, many different methods you can use, but for me, this is what I'm doing. And I think I found this on like a Pinterest board or something. So I'm literally just squeezing. And it does get most of the seeds out. And, you know, I'm just kind of going through and scraping what I can out of here. Oh yeah, see, there's a big thing right there of seeds. So I'll go through this and get this done. I'm going to need another bowl. But I'm going to go ahead and squeeze all these out and we'll get to the next step. And obviously you're not going to catch them all. I mean, I think that's probably impossible to catch all the seeds, but the more you get, the better, I think. Because I'm not putting these into a blender or food processor or anything like that. They're going right into the pan and cooking. So also to note, these seeds are no longer viable. So don't plan on saving these seeds to replant later because they have been frozen. So they're no longer viable. So if you do want to plant seeds, save seeds from your tomatoes, do it before you freeze them. Save 1 or 2 tomatoes, take the seeds out and save them, and then throw them in the freezer. So just a little FYI. Okay, so we have our tomatoes de-seeded and all smashed up. And again, like I said, you're not going to get them all, and that's okay. And this is the juice that they were sitting in. And here we have our squeezed out seeds and tomatoes. So next step, let me show you what I'm going to do. Also, one thing I failed to mention is that when you're squeezing your tomato, I like to kind of cut a seam down the middle to kind of half it. That gives you better access to that inner membrane where the majority of the seeds are going to be. So that makes it a little bit quicker to get those seeds out. And again, like I said, you're not going to get them all, and that's fine. Okay. I'm actually going to dump these back in here. My next step is I still want to use this juice where all these seeds are. So usually I would ladle this in, but I'm just going to go ahead and kind of pour. So I'm just straining it so that I can save the juice without all the seeds, because that is good stuff. And we want all that tomato juice that we can get. So I'm going to just kind of swirl it around a bit. And let me show you what I've got. All right, so you can see mostly seeds in here. I'm not worried about this tomato pieces because most of that is the inner membrane, and so not a big deal. So there we go. All right, so since these seeds have been frozen and they're no longer viable, I have no problem putting them in my compost. So usually I don't like to compost tomatoes because then I have volunteers popping up everywhere. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and put all that in the compost. So that's done. And now we're ready to get cooking. I'm just going to go ahead and pour this back in here. So red and delicious. And honestly, I don't think I'm going to need this, but I'm going to save it anyway. And if my sauce starts to get a little thick, then I can add some of that to thin it out, and it still keeps that tomato flavor. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead, and first thing I'm going to do is, let's see, I'm thinking I probably have about 4 to 6 cups of tomatoes here. Being all smashed up, it's kind of hard to tell, but it's about the same amount I used last year. So I'm going to go ahead and saute half an onion and some garlic. And I think that's it. So onions and garlic, I'm going to get that sauteed in the pan, and then I'll go ahead and add my tomatoes, and I'm going to let those simmer. I can't remember how long. I'll have to look at the recipe I have, but you let them simmer until they've cooked down a bit, much softer than they are now. And then I just take my immersion blender and I blend it up. Unless you want chunky sauce, then you don't have to do that. You can skip that step. But for me, I want it nice and smooth. So I'm going to use that blender and get it all blended up, and we'll go from there. All right, so we've got our onions and garlic nice and tender. So I'm just going to go ahead and dump in the tomatoes and all that juice. All right, now I'm going to bring this to a simmer, and I'm going to let it simmer and turn the heat up a bit. I'm going to let that simmer for about 10 minutes, and then I'll take the immersion blender and just blend it all up nice and smooth. And then I'll add in salt, pepper, oregano, and basil. And those are just my preferred spices for this, and it's delicious. So also, everything in this pot came from the garden. Tomatoes, garlic, basil, oregano. Okay, maybe not the salt and pepper, but everything else came from the garden. So when the next time I have sauce, I'm going to know exactly where every single ingredient came from. All organic, all homegrown, and that is a beautiful thing. So we're going to just let this cook down and show you the finished product. So the tomatoes have been simmering for about 10 minutes. So now I'm just going to go in with the immersion blender and get it all blended up. All right, so it looks like we've got there's a chunk. It's a good consistency right now. I don't believe I'll be using that extra tomato water, but I'm going to keep that just in case. All right, we've got a nice consistency. And like I said, that is, I've just totally lost my train of thought, you guys. Oh yeah, okay, so it's a nice consistency. It's not super thick, but it could thicken as I cook it. So I'm just gonna save that water in case I need it. So I'm gonna add a little bit of seasoning here. So we're gonna do some salt, and I'm doing everything by taste because, I mean, you know what you like, you know how much you like. Alter your recipes based on that. So just season it up. And last but not least, the basil. And I did run out of my garden basil. So yeah, I am using the store-bought. So I lied. This is not from the garden. At least the basil isn't, but. And I am going to load it up with basil. So it's got so much flavor. Also, there's tons of garlic in here because we love garlic up in here. So just going to give that a nice stir. And I'm going to let this simmer for another 45 minutes to an hour. And then I'll give it a taste test and see if it needs any more seasonings. Other than that, we've got sauce. And because this is a small batch, I'm going to actually freeze this. So I will put it into jars. And the key to freezing tomato sauce in jars is you want to leave an inch head space at the top of the jar. And that allows for expansion because it will expand in your freezer. So make sure you leave an inch. But yeah, I mean, I've frozen this before and it's fabulous. You thaw it out a day or so before you're going to use it in the fridge. And it's awesome. It's great stuff. So there you have it. Fresh garden tomato sauce. All right. So thanks for joining me on my little sauce making adventure. And I'll let you know how the tomato powder works because this will be my first time dehydrating tomato skins and making powder. So keep you updated on how that goes. But anyway, thanks for joining and happy gardening, happy harvesting, happy cooking.